Hello. How you doing, my guy? Hold on, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You're muted. Hello? I'm trying to think if my connections do anything. Can you hear me? Um, yeah, my speaker's on. Don't know what to tell you. Yeah, that's better.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, it's always the way, isn't it, man? Just turn the thing off and turn it back on.
Again.
Oh, how you doing, Ayo?
I'm good.
Good, man.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
So, man, thank you for reaching out to me, man. This is
man.
definitely long overdue, man.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah. Bro, when you sent me the voice note,
Yeah.
all the children in the background, man.
Yeah. That's life.
Into bed.
That's nice. They're going to bed now. Yeah. That's it. Full-time daddy, boy.
Hey, nice. Family guy, bro. Family guy.
Serious.
I tell you how I bumped into about 4 hours ago. I bumped into Weymar. I was cycling through the park. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt when I saw her. She's got 3 kids, man.
My goodness.
And I tell you with Weymar, she hasn't aged one bit physically.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
My goodness. What's she up to? What's she up to?
Oh, right. So she was telling me that up until 2 months ago, she was a locum GP.
Okay.
I think she's living out in like Stoke. Where did you say? Stoke Newington. So like kind of Hackney area, basically. So she's been doing some locum work. I didn't realize she moved down to London in like 2012. So she's been around for a little while now.
Yeah. Boy, those are the days, man.
Right, exactly, man. Jeez. I saw Owens Park on the news. You know how they're trying to fence in the students. You know, Fallowfields.
Yeah. They're getting excited because but it's silly though, because it's like, so we're paying for uni because you can do the teaching from home. So the fact that we're paying for the experience, we've come all the way here and now I can't leave my house. Like what's that about?
Oh, bro, I felt the first term at university because I was experiencing university.
Oh, is it?
I can't imagine being one of those kids. They pay what? They pay like 10 times as much as we used to pay in the day.
Students, absolutely.
And like you're saying, to be stuck in a room with strangers, self-isolating, it's a bit mad.
Yeah. And the university has the audacity to be like, nah, still come because we need your money. But when you come, you can't. Nah, we're gonna do everything by Zoom. So I could have stayed at home in my country. You know what I mean? It's,
exactly, man. Exactly. Oh, crazy times, man. Crazy times. But how's the whole family holding up, man? And yeah, my condolences, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's. I mean, I think for me is that like I was because my dad wasn't old, and it was like it was sudden, so it'd be different in situations when you see people in hospital and they're deteriorating over a matter of days or weeks, there's a certain intentional and unintentional preparation that happens. This is going to happen, so either I'm avoiding it or I'm facing it head on. But it was just like, because it was like that, there was, oh right, so he's gone, and okay, what do we do? What do we do now? So shock was a big thing for all of us and all the people who knew him, because again, he wasn't like old or feeble. He's the kind of guy that you might think would outlive us all. you know. So so I mean, funeral and all that kind of stuff. Now it's because for me, after it happened, it was very much like everything is paused and we're focusing on the burial and stuff. And now it's a case of, okay, so let's pick up the stuff that we were doing before. Let's start making plans for the future, Christmas, next year, all this kind of stuff. And it's not the times that I'm like, conscious of the fact that, he's gone. It's the times when I might forget, if that's the best way to say it. So, I mean, my dad wasn't big on like social stuff too tough. So like, let's say it was a birthday party or somebody, family get together. Everyone would be together. My dad would come, he would pray, and he would go. Like that was his flex. So like, not so long after, it was my daughter's birthday.
Okay.
And I caught myself, I wonder when that is, because up until that point, it could have been like he was here. Because he would have flown in, done what he's doing, we would have cut the cake, and then he would have got off. So, but you know what I mean? It's, I think I'm thinking a lot about perspective these days, and like, the situation is what it is, but how I view the situation will determine a lot of.
That's 100%, man. Yeah, that is, you can't be more truer than that, to be honest with you. Yeah, I've been catching a few of your, what do you want to call them, like vlogs? The ones you posted on.
I'm trying.
Yeah. But you know what? I feel like it's a little bit mad. And again, condolences to you and your family regarding what's happened, man. And obviously with your own health and stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like this year is a very interesting year in the sense that, there's a lot going on.
Absolutely.
And it's all happened this year.
Yeah.
And it's a time for a lot of people who, maybe to an extent, people like you and me who are able to carry on going to work are kind of privileged. Yeah. But there's a lot of people who are stuck in this lockdown at the moment.
Yeah.
And I feel to myself, like, if you're not coming out of this lockdown as a stronger individually, mentally, physically, then you're really failing. Like, at the end of the day, this is a perfect time to, you don't have this opportunity ever again to just pause. Reflect, process, and then plan going forward. Basically, this is the time.
Well, I mean, let's get into it because like, my wife and I, we were having this conversation specifically about that on lockdown number 1.
Yeah,
those memes are like, if you don't come out of lockdown with a new skill, if you don't, then you didn't lack the opportunity. You just lack focus.
Yes.
Or whatever. And she's like, yeah, but it's a pandemic and it's a trauma. We're all dealing with the fact that, hold on, COVID is a big deal. And those of us black, like, hold on, it's killing black people. Another thing?
Yeah.
So is it too much to ask to say, oh, well, use the time? But my take on it was like, let's just acknowledge the fact that the people who do come out of it with a different thing, all they have done is use the same time that everybody's have and been intentional about it.
Yeah.
And she was like saying, but those people who maybe type A or whatever don't have grace for people who might struggle to get there. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I hear exactly what you're saying. So, you know what? The way I always you going on about perspective earlier. So the way I ever try and, understand anything is from my experience first and foremost. And then I try and think of the experiences of other people and how they might not marry up with my experiences or how I view the world. But I guess I've been working, man. Some good things have happened to me in 2020. I became a consultant psychiatrist. I'm a locum consultant psychiatrist. In terms of my workload, I've taken on more work than ever before, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've still managed, because, you know, at the end of the day, time is only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
And we're all subject to that.
Absolutely.
But it's what you do with that time,
Yeah.
basically,
Mm-hmm.
and what you do with your spare time. And I guess what's changed with me is my focus.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people, they don't have that focus.
Yeah.
So even though I'm working these extra hours, one thing that has changed for me is that now I realize that, you know what, I can be more economical when it comes to my fitness, my eating regime, my reaching out and connecting with people. Like my focus has changed. It's not like I've made more time for it. It's just my focus has changed. And I feel like the old world, and it sometimes it does bug me when people are like, oh, I just can't wait for life to go back to normal. I feel at the end of the day, normal's gone. Normal's over. This thing has happened for a reason, because normal wasn't working. So we should not be thinking about going back to normal. We should be thinking about going forward and something better than what we had before, basically.
Absolutely. It's very much like I'm the same in terms of like, it is what it is. We are where we are. How can I make I think it takes a certain kind of mindset to be asking yourself, well, how do I make the best of this situation? As opposed to this situation is unpleasant. Let me go back to what was pleasant and not use what I have. You know, I was talking to a group of people today, you know, so for instance, I play in the band at church. And normally, so we would have to get to church early. We would drive there, we would do the service, and then we would pack up and we think. But now with Zoom church, haven't we been given time? So, you know what I mean? So again, it depends on how you...
This is it. I mean, 100%. Like, exactly how you look at it, basically. So we've cut out a lot of travel time.
Absolutely.
You know, I've always been very careful when it comes to choosing, when I was in training, choosing what jobs I applied for. Even now, I don't want to overcomplicate my life. I don't see the point of, at the end of the day, I'm a consultant psychiatrist in an area of London where I want to be a consultant psychiatrist. I've positioned myself, so my commute to work is no longer than 10 to 15 minutes without traffic.
Okay.
And that allows me to really make most of the rest of my day.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, some people will travel to the earth's end, like an hour, 15-minute commute to work and back as well. They've lost 3 hours in a day.
Yeah, exactly.
So with this new like world, even this morning, like, and I'm not sure if we've jumped into it already, but like, you know, I've made opportunities to kind of like, you know, go to webinars. I don't even have to change out of my clothes. Like, you know, I don't have to dress up. I don't have to wear my Sunday best to do all these things, you know. I can just be like, you know, if I wanted to, in my PJs. Not that I am, but that could be the case, basically. Even now, this conversation, like, how unique is this?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will go on about, you know, the thing with the pandemic is we're all socially distanced. No, that's the wrong language. We are not socially distanced. We are more social and more connected than ever before due to technology.
Yeah.
What we are is physically distanced. We're physically distanced, 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, me and you, we left your university, what, about a decade ago now?
Yeah,
yeah, you graduated the year before me because I intercalated.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I left in 2009, but I remember you helping me down. Actually, you got your van, you brought me down. Yeah, you remember those times? Yeah, that was 2009. Can you imagine? That was the last time I physically saw you.
My goodness.
I can't remember if there was another time in between, but I feel like that's it.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so we're talking 11 years, mate.
Goodness.
And I tell you straight, if not for this pandemic, we probably wouldn't be connecting.
I hear that. We were talking about you know, the film The Hurricane with Denzel Washington.
With Denzel, oh yes, I'm a big Denzel fan, man. Yeah.
The Hurricane gets wrongly convicted, right?
Yes.
I think of rape or something. I can't even remember. But he's in maximum security prison. He is not allowed to leave his cell for 23 hours in a day, which obviously can turn some people mad. But the narration was, by choosing not to leave my cell for 23 hours of the day, I took the power away from them.
100%.
You know? So again,
Yeah.
perspective and how you view things. I mean, for me, that's because hey, Jeff Bezos is making more money this year than he did last year per month. So not everyone's having a bad year.
No, they really aren't, man. They really aren't. And I guess it comes down to what your kind of outlook and your mindset is.
Mm.
You know, many people have said that, you know, and I think we will talk about it later on in this conversation about slavery. And yeah, everyone has a different take on slavery and how it's affected our people then and our people now.
Yeah.
But just to touch on something you said about, you know, the film, the hurricane and stuff, is all about the mindset. And to be honest with you, slavery is a state of mind to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you can change the way you think about things, like Denzel Washington's character did in that film, you can literally ultimately change your outcomes and your perspective going forward, basically.
Yeah, okay.
I think that is very important. So I always try and, you know, sometimes I can't be direct to my patients as a consultant psychiatrist, be speaking to vulnerable people with, you know, mental disorder. I can't sometimes be so blunt with them as to the words I choose, but ultimately I can be a bit more blunt with my friends. And sometimes I say during times like this, control the things you can control in your life.
Yeah.
And the things you can't control, don't even start trying to think about the solutions and stuff like that. I mean, going back to what your wife said about, okay, true, we're all being traumatized. We're in a pandemic at this moment in time.
Yeah.
But none of us, I mean, we work in healthcare, we are not going to come up with the vaccine. Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah.
We're not going to come up with the vaccine. So don't beat ourselves up about the whole thing, basically.
I hear that.
Let's just control the things we can control. And what we can control first and foremost is ourselves, our mindset, our health, physical health. And then before we can do all that, then we can focus on the people around us.
Yeah.
Charity starts at home, and this is home. Your body, your mind is your home. Start there. Fix all of that stuff first.
It's a very good concept. You know, we've been talking about it from a like I see the memes and stuff like that. In a situation where we're on the plane and the masks come down, they always tell you to put the mask on yourself first.
Or your son or your daughter, 100%.
Because if you're messed up, how is it possible that you're going to be the best to be able to help somebody else? So
100%.
yeah, I'm sure we'll get to all this, but yeah, thank you so much for joining.
Appreciate it, man. It's an honor. It's a pleasure doing this, man.
I'm just having conversations. So
yeah, exactly, and that's it. This is it.
Yeah. So my thing is, I'm getting people to introduce themselves. So tell everybody who you are, how you want to be addressed. Don't hide your light.
Okay, that's big. That's big. Okay. So seeing as you've put it like that, and I mean, everyone calls me Johnny, but yes, I'm Dr. Johnny. I'm going to throw in my middle name actually, because I feel it's appropriate in this context. So my name is Dr. John Adewale Iola. I'm a consultant psychiatrist, locum at this moment in time. I finished my training in summer, August, so during this whole pandemic, basically. Originally from Nigeria. My parents came over in the 80s, in the early 80s. Shortly after they came over, I mean, they migrated to Newham in East London. As soon as they came over, within a year, they had myself. We moved to the Isle of Dogs, which is in Tower Hamlets, a neighbouring borough. So these are two of the most deprived boroughs in London back then and still to date. I've kind of found myself back in Tower Hamlets now, on the Isle of Dogs, not in my parents' house, but literally on the nicer side of the street. And so I'm a consultant psychiatrist in a home treatment team. Home treatment teams have always been my passion when it comes to psychiatry. I'm a firm believer that, you know, when dealing with such patients, such vulnerable patients that have had some horrible experiences in their life, but yeah, again, patients that I can relate to on a geographical level, working in the borough of Newham at the moment, which is in East London. So you can just imagine that my patients are from a diverse, multicultural background. There's a lot of poverty, illicit substance misuse. These are all things that are very familiar with me because of the area that I grew up in, basically. But coming back to that particular kind of niche of psychiatry, I've always been of the opinion that these patients are better treated in their communities, in their homes, in the places that they need to be,
Yeah.
not incarcerated on wards, which are artificial environments, first and foremost, but these are not the places that people need to be.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they may end up there, but where I need them to be is back with their families, with their communities, you know, giving to their children, to their partners, etc., etc. So yeah, have I left anything out about within my introduction there? Was there anything else
No,
you would like
that's
to
good.
say?
That's good, man. That's good. So you're of Nigerian descent. So this thing about medicine or lawyer was it inevitable? Was it?
Okay. So I would like to say that my parents never put any pressure on me. I feel the only kind of pressure my parents put on me was the, you know, you need qualifications.
Okay.
Okay, mom and dad, I've given you 4 now. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
They never said you have to be a doctor. You should be this. You should be that.
Yeah.
But funny enough, I went to medical school. My sister below me went to Cambridge to study law.
Yeah.
She's
Okay.
never worked a day as a lawyer, but you know, something within our heritage has kind of guided us and gravitated us to kind of these roles,
But
basically.
there were no explicit conversations about.
No, there wasn't, Ayo. And with me, when it came to, I was one of those people, and I still am to this day. I wouldn't say that I ever had a longer term plan. I just thought I'd just take every year as it came, do what was asked of me of that year when it comes to GCSEs, etc., etc. Come to my GCSEs, did well. I was like, oh, okay, we didn't know you had that in you. Okay, let's take our son out of state school. Let's put him into private school.
Okay.
Let's send him a private school in sixth form
Yeah.
education and see what he does with that. So I found myself in a very not diverse sixth form.
Yeah. Okay.
In Southeast London, where my parents were paying a bit of an arm and a leg for me to attend with a scholarship that was. And yeah, ultimately I did what I needed to do with my A levels. But I was always, I mean, it was only until you really needed to decide on your UCAS what you wanted to do. I never had it in mind that I wanted to be a doctor.
Really?
Didn't know, no. For me, I love science. I loved science. I loved applying science. I loved problem solving. I liked talking to people, trying to solve out what was going on with them.
Yeah.
For me, it was like crime scene investigation. You know,
Okay.
forensic science. Forensic science was the thing that I was thinking about applying for before I
Okay.
decided, you know what, I'm going to apply for medical school. And the reason being, I just love the shows. I'm not sure if you've ever watched the shows.
CSI and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. CSI Miami,
Yeah.
Las Vegas. And I
Yeah.
always like, a little bit morbid, but you know, you're really dealing with death and how the person came to die, basically.
Yeah.
But it's that process that came along with that kind of detective process
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you're looking to kind of break down using the clues or the cues that you have, basically,
Yeah.
and ultimately come up with a diagnosis. And it was only actually at medical school when someone told me actually, what's his name? Was it the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes? Was it Sir Arnold Conan Doyle? I think his name
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
He wrote Sherlock Holmes, so we know Sherlock Holmes is a fictional detective.
Yeah.
What people don't know is that Sherlock Holmes was actually based on a surgeon. I think his name was Joseph Bell, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was actually a medical school student, and he observed this Dr. Bell, this
Yeah.
surgeon, to be acting like a detective when it came to kind of picking up symptoms, signs, and coming up with a diagnosis.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a massive connection
Yeah.
between, you
Yeah.
know, just that life of a detective
Yeah. Yeah.
and being a medical doctor, which is what I then I didn't know I was doing it then, but I do know I'm doing it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of put those things together and thought, wow, I could actually apply my science in a meaningful way for people that are alive rather than people that are dead.
Yeah. No, but it's like you say, it's pattern recognition. I remember having a
Yes.
conversation with a mechanic one time because he was like, actually, your job is very similar to mine.
Yeah.
When I do my job, the engine's off. You know what I mean? Whereas you have to do your job while the car is still running. But again, it's pattern recognition, trying to find out. And for me, how it manifested is that's why I always liked being on call. Strangely, most people don't like being on call. I always like being on call because you're the first person to either clout the patient or to come and see the problem. And actually, I can, okay, this plus this plus this plus this equals, oh, it's bowel obstruction, or oh, it's an MI, or, you know what I mean? So that's, for me, that was the thing that I enjoyed most. Probably why I'm doing acute medicine right now, because again, by the time you get to award, someone's already made a decision about it. I'd like to be the guy who says, actually, no, it's not X. It's
first on the scene, exactly. Yeah, 100%. It's interesting what you said about the whole mechanic thing, actually, because I have a cousin, and on the rare occasions that I've ever been to Nigeria, and I hold my hands up, I should have been more often, and I guess we can get into that later on, basically.
Yeah.
But on one of the rare occasions that I went to Nigeria, and yeah, this was the final occasion, actually. I went for the passing of my late grandfather at the time, for his funeral.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was already in a position where I think I had graduated from medical school. So I guess I was a doctor at the time.
Yeah.
And one of my cousins, like, kind of said to me, like, oh, like, what can I do with my life? Like, what can I do? Because I feel like I haven't got it in me to go to medical school.
Yeah.
But what can I do with my life? And it being Lagos, I looked around and I thought, you know what? I made that connection as well. Like, there is, to an extent, people are always going to get sick.
Yeah.
And if people are not going to get sick, if in Nigeria, if you look, one thing I remember about Lagos, the hustle and bustle of Lagos, the roads are rammed, full of vehicles.
Okay.
Vehicles get sick as well.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a need for someone to fix the vehicles.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just like the nature of Nigerians and Lagosians as well. It's like the fact that they're engineers. They're always fixing stuff.
Yeah.
So my advice to him at the time was that, you know, there's a lot of similarities between mechanics and medicine.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I mentioned when I was at the medical school interview to the panel at Manchester University. They kept on questioning me, oh, why did you do A-level in IT? Like, what's that got to do with being a doctor, medicine?
Yeah.
And I kind of broke it down to them and said, look, at the end of the day, computers are designed very similar to ourselves. They have a CPU.
Yeah.
You know, they have they have wiring.
Yeah.
You know, have connections. They have monitors. They have input sources.
Yeah.
It's very much like a human being at the end of the day.
Nice.
So,
what did they like that in the interview?
I think they did in Manchester. I don't think they liked it in some of the other places I got interviewed. But yeah, in Manchester, they were like, yeah, come on board, basically.
So you said about private school. Now this is a conversation that I'm having internally myself with my kids. Now, I didn't go to private school, but I asked myself the question, would my life be different if I did? What do you think? Do you think your life would be different if you hadn't gone to private school?
It's a good question. I mean, ultimately, our lives would be different if we just deviated a little bit away from what path we were on.
Yeah.
Because there would have been some sort of interaction, some sort of experience that would then gravitated us or thrown us off into a different trajectory. It's not to say that I wouldn't have become a doctor, but maybe I wouldn't have gone to Manchester University.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe if I went to, say, Imperial, which is another place I got into, maybe I would have been influenced by somebody who was a surgeon, for example, and ended up finding myself gravitating to that kind of speciality.
Yeah.
So life is interesting in the sense that it just takes a little thing.
Yeah.
But all I would say is I'm very happy where I am.
Yeah.
My experience at the sixth form in Southeast London was not a pleasurable one. It was still one that needed to happen, basically.
Okay.
I just to set the scene for yourself and anyone listening in, is that I came from a school that wasn't very. It was diverse. The state school I went to was very diverse, but this area of Tower Hamlets that I grew up in was predominantly Asian Bangladeshi, and predominantly native Caucasian English.
Yeah.
And then in between that, you'd also have a small Chinese population, a very small Somali population, And then you literally have to lump black people together. And when I say black people, I'm talking about African, I'm talking about Caribbean people all together, because we were tiny. In a year group of about 150 people, we were about 10 of us in each year, basically.
Okay.
Very tiny cohort.
Yeah.
And then I went from that to a sixth form. It was actually part of a boarding school, but it's an option for some people. Most people were from affluent, privileged backgrounds, majority Caucasian, a small population of Asian, but a different type of Asian. Now we're talking about Sri Lankan and Indian. I don't really recall many Bangladeshis. And this is only like, we're talking about a 30-minute public transport commute from where I grew up. London, basically, on the other side of the river. But one thing I did notice in this school, which was a bit shocking, and it was mainly a boys' school with the sixth form being mixed. It was almost like there was a quota to have one black person per year group.
Wow.
And I could see that in every single year, which was below sixth form. And it really pained me to see that as well. It really pained me to see that. So, coupled with obviously being, a minority in that environment, you're going to get things like the overt racism, as well as, covert racism, systemic racism, and it definitely exists. And there were certain things that I observed there, which I have had a chance to reflect on in my older life, and say, that was not acceptable then. All of that stuff that happened. It happened. Just to set the scene again, this school that I went to was literally a stone's throw away from where Stephen Lawrence was murdered. Wow. So it was a mad thing to kind of experience that. And we kind of know that the people that murdered Stephen Lawrence, people who got charged for it and convicted for it, they weren't from these privileged kind of boarding school backgrounds, but yet the rich and the poor in that area, and we can say throughout the whole of the UK, kind of had that mindset to an extent, to be honest with you, that racist mindset. But I guess I'm deviating away from what you were asking, but private school is one that you're going to have to consider, because there will be some advantages sending your children to private school. I think more importantly, what you should consider is what the other students look like, what the teachers look like, what their values are, what their beliefs are. Because you've got to remember, you must be doing a sterling job. You and your wife are doing a sterling job raising your children to be not like you, not just like you, but better than you.
Absolutely.
So you've got to be very sensible with, if you're going to spend money to model your children to be a certain way, who are you giving your money to, and how are they modeling your children? They need to share your values. They need to share your principles. This is it. So I'll be of the opinion that, yes, I'm sure there are many great institutes out there that are more ethnically diverse, that will charge and give a private schooling, and I would go for them rather than just thinking private school is just better than state school.
I mean, I think it's a real issue when it comes to identity and understanding one's place in the world, and as a consequence of the identity that you build up, like, so from a locus of control or resilience point of view, everything you learn in that space is going to be what determines how you operate in the professional environment. And there are some things that even now I'm unlearning, just trying to be like, so coming from an African, Nigerian background, it's like, so I'm still today uncomfortable calling older people by their first name. I understand it's just going to be a bigger issue than it needs to be if I make a point of saying sister or doctor because for them culturally it puts a barrier if I don't call you by your first name, whereas I can call you Dr. X and still be quite fond of you, because culturally for me it's like, it's just how I've grown up. But but then if I do that, then how am I going to be perceived? You know, because like now I'm in a position of an assessor, and I'm seeing people assess junior doctors, and I wonder at when I always feel it when somebody who is black doesn't get a outstanding. I'm wondering what's different about this guy than somebody else who did get outstanding, other than the fact that you might not understand this person culturally. The reason why you might not be speaking out is because he's trying to be deferential as opposed to he doesn't know anything. You see what I mean?
100%. And just to pick you up on that point before I forget it, actually, is that, and we'll talk a lot more about identity during this, because ultimately I am in the job I am in because of problems with identity at the end of the day. Not just my own identity, but my patient's identity. But yeah, one thing that I always remembered, like I said the same in regards to, I was always a minority in whatever class, in whatever year group that I was in. And I remember, like, you know, you could see that as young black boys, we were treated differently by our teachers, you know. These are teachers who are supposed to, like, you know, care about us, should be inspiring us, but we were treated differently by them. And I remember certain things, there was like this conflict between things that happened in my home and things that happened in the classroom. So, you know, if I was being scolded or told off by my parents, from Nigerian culture, it's rude to look your parents in the eyes.
Absolutely.
If anyone in here is listening to this, not Nigerian or West African background, if your parents are telling you off, if you look into their eyes, that's disobedience. Disobedience. And this is a time where we get hit, basically. You get a smack, basically. So you wouldn't do that. But then you get to school and the teacher's telling you off for whatever reason it is, and you are not looking them in the eye, which they then perceive as disobedience, as ignorance, disrespectful. Look at me when I'm telling you off. You're not looking at the floor. So you've got to battle with this every single day of how you should be in different environments. And that's one thing I would definitely tell you, is like going to state school, going to private school, going to places where I'm a minority ethnic, going to a place where, you know, I might be amongst other black people and there'll be no Caucasians in sight or brown people in sight, is that I've learned to adapt. Adaptability has allowed me to get to the stage that I'm at now. When and where to turn on certain kind of taps.
No, but I think, I mean, because there's this thing about code switching, right? So I think the people who are in the majority in whatever, whether it's ethnic or sex, you know, gender, you know, if you're in a majority, then everything is geared towards you. So you never have to appreciate it from the other person's point of view. So if I'm coming into a space as an ethnic minority, I'm aware that this environment isn't designed to cater to me. As a consequence of that, I now move a different way. So I learned the skill of moving that way, whereas when I'm at home or I'm around other Nigerians or black people, I have learned the skill of operating in that environment. So at the very least, I'm bilingual in that respect. Whereas if somebody's in a situation where actually I am in the majority in every space I'm in, I never have to learn any different spaces. You know, and it's funny because I've now started taking to the point of when everyone says ethnic minority, I always say in this country.
Yes, 100. I mean, the reality is black and brown people are the world's majority, to be honest with you.
It's a relative term.
A larger proportion of the world than our white counterparts.
Absolutely.
But, you know, interesting.
For people who may have grown up here and never thought about it, like even that, it's like, you know.
It's mind-boggling. Yeah, it really is. It really is.
But yeah, so we went to the same uni. Now I can remember in Manchester University, it was about 300 people, 250, 300 people in our year.
Yeah, that's correct. I would say probably closer to 400, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. But go on. You're talking about the back row crew, right? Break it down, because we all found ourselves very quickly.
This is what I'm saying, you know, like in that environment, there was the innate either need or desire to congregate, you know. So at the back row, there was me, there was you, there was Z, you know, and there was Eric, there was Ak, there was all these people, you know, Sarah, all these
there was Nadia.
exactly,
Yeah.
you know. And so if you just take black people, I think, was it 30? Would they have even been that much?
Oh no, you're a lot less actually. No, I mean, I made an effort of counting, to be honest with you.
Really?
And I want to say that if you include our brothers and sisters of a mixed heritage, I think we were looking at about 12 of us, in honesty. And I tell you, I know this because, you know, at least 8 of us were in the back row. You know, looking down on the lecture theatre. So, you know, I could see Jamie, I could see Mike, I could see Ayana. These names still fit, Jessica as well. I mean, those are the only ones that didn't come and sit with us at the back. These are the people that I would observe, like closer to the front. And also the fact that we found ourselves at the back as well is also like, I mean, it's powerful stuff, you know.
The imagery.
As a psychiatrist, I really think into the meaning of things. Was that the meaning that we felt that we were outsiders, that we didn't quite belong? Like, it wasn't a case of like, you know, when you jump on an inner city London school bus and all the bad kids, you know, go to the back. It wasn't like that. We were all there to learn. I mean, a few of the people that you named were postgraduates, including yourself, you know. So these were people with the mindset that, you know, I've already got 1 degree. You know, I want to get another degree. I want to become a doctor. There's money at stakes as well.
Do you know the funny thing is, I remember that certain lecturers made that joke about us on the back row. About that, or these bad kids on the back row, which again, from an imagery point of view, you're now singling out a predominantly black population to the But because I think I've started thinking about these kinds of things more recently, but at the time, I was like, I do not believe that the numbers are as a reflection of the number of people who applied. I don't believe that.
I agree as well, because I had the pleasure, I could call it, of being what we call like a mummy and daddy to the year group that followed us. And I looked at their cohort as well, and there were probably exactly 12 people. And again, I know this because I was involved in sports, in the football team, in the basketball team. So I got to meet a lot of these people in the years that followed, not just the one after that, but the year group after that and the year group after that. And I always felt that the numbers, it was almost like they were fixed to 12 people.
Wow.
It always felt like we were having the same numbers coming through. And that was not a reflection of the worlds we were coming from. It wasn't, not at all.
So like, talk about like bias and stuff like that, because my thing is that although I believe the argument that there's a degree to which you can't be what you can't see. So for young black boys and black girls, there needs to be greater visibility of all the choices, all this stuff about representation. Like, love it. You know, you don't have to, hey, I'm not against entertainment industry, but that's not the only route from where you are to whatever you call success. There's other things that you can do, you know, to build a life and to build a career and work.
I definitely take on board, because I definitely subscribe to see it, believe it, achieve it, 100%. But that wasn't the case for me. Like, I'm the first doctor in my family. You know, growing up, I never saw a psychiatrist because no one in my family needed to see a psychiatrist. The only interactions I ever had with any doctor was with my Sri Lankan GP, you know. So I never really ever saw it to be able to know that I could believe it and then achieve it. And even now, like, I look at my patients, and I work in East London. Like, you don't get any more diverse than East London. Yet when a black patient, I'm gonna say black, forget brown, forget, you know, mixed heritage. Whenever I see a black patient come into the room, they can't believe it. They can't, it just doesn't sink in. That someone that looks like them, that someone could be, you know, a brother or a father or a son, could actually be in the role that I'm in. And that doesn't like stick very well with me at all. It does. It's unsettling to even imagine that.
Yeah, every now and then I'm dealing with like an older, generally older Black patients, and they look at me, and it's like a sense of pride,
Yeah,
almost, or like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's more than just a nod. It's like it's wow, like hey, I see you, yeah. From a community point of view, do we need to be better at being visible? Who knows?
Well, and this is whew, this you could write a dissertation about this, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, should we be more visible? Like, whose duty is that first and
Yeah,
foremost?
yeah,
Is
yeah.
it our duty? Is it us as a community's duty? I
Mm.
don't really know, but what I do know is that there's certain things that stop us from wanting to be more visible.
Yeah,
And that is like so many adversities that we as individuals and as a community have to accomplish. Like, you would have been told, I was told, not only like if you're going to try and make it in life, not only do you have to be as good as your white counterpart, you've
yep,
got to be better than your
yep,
white
absolutely,
counterpart.
yep, yep, yep.
Not only on top of that is the fact that now we've got to deal with some of the things we've kind of already discussed. The systemic racism,
Yeah,
overt, covert, all the challenges that come along for myself growing up in East London, the poverty, it's a lot.
yeah,
It's an absolute lot.
yeah,
So you can imagine that when you do get to a point of success, you might be a bit exhausted,
yeah,
You might be a bit exhausted to say, you know what, I'm going to now role model somebody else's children for them. Like,
yeah. And I hear that. I hear that. I hear that. I hear that. I suppose. Um. So this year, I don't know whether we're coming to this too soon, but this year with the George Floyd situation,
mm,
what struck me about it is because we are bombarded with images of Black bodies being shot by police all the time, so it's not a new thing. But the thing that kept coming to me with the George Floyd is like, we need to take. So after George Floyd, I had the stroke, right? So I was like, we need to take better care of ourselves, man. Like because no one's coming. you know, Batman's not coming, Iron Man's not coming. Like nobody's coming to take care of us. We need to
yeah,
take. Go on.
the superheroes you've named are all white superheroes, by the way. So, I mean, you could have thrown in the Silver Surfer or Black Panther or
Yeah,
something like that,
Black
Come on,
Lightning or Luke Cage. Or
yeah, exactly, man. Well, give us a, but that's it though. At the end of the day, like, it's something that and we'll probably get into it when we kind of talk about the problems with psychiatry, with psychology,
yeah.
is that you can't have your oppressor looking like your savior at the same time.
Wow.
It's a mind F, basically. It's
Yeah.
really challenging for all of our minds.
Mm.
Yeah. And you're right, we do need to take better care of ourselves, because the people that are there to protect and serve us, they have a completely different agenda. And
Yeah.
as much as this guy who had his knee on George Floyd, George's neck, is an oppressor, he's also a victim to the whole situation.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
He's also a victim because this is systemic racism at its finest.
Yeah.
The fact that this guy is getting away with what he done as well is the system. The system is literally allowing for this to happen on a regular basis. But it's mad at the end of the day. Like, it's so much has happened in this year to the fact that we might even need 2021 to pause and reflect on this shit,
Hey, it's not even a joke. It's not even a joke, for real.
But if I can just touch on one thing you said, and I think it's important. We need to take better care of ourselves. Yes, 100%. Before 2020, before coronavirus, before police brutality, before serious youth violence, a young Black men stabbing in London, in other parts of the UK, major cities, would probably, with the exception of Glasgow, where it's our white natives who do it to each other. Before all of these things, Black people have been dying. Yeah. We've been dying. I tell you what's been killing us. What's been killing us is, I don't want to say living in the West. I want to say adopting Western lifestyles.
Okay.
Yeah?
I hear that.
So we're dying with regards to our physical health, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, heart attacks. We're getting diabetes. Unfortunately, my brother, you had a stroke, yeah? Obesity, cancer. All of these things where if you look at how it's affecting Black people here, this is not our history. This is all new stuff to us. Yeah. This is what came along with migration to the West, basically. And when you want to compare ourselves to our brothers and sisters back home, and you could probably do the same with coronavirus, it doesn't target us like this. Because we live a different lifestyle back there. Yeah. And my line of work, mental health as well. We can't ignore the fact that Black people in the, especially in the inpatient setting, are overrepresented. Yeah. And there's a reason why that is. And it's because, again, by coming over from our countries, our homelands, to the West, we've now been given this additional stress. And most people have identified it to be systemic racism. It's that and more. And all of these things are leading us to have breakdowns. Yeah.
So, bro, hey, that's like, this is where we're getting to. But so let's backtrack for the sake of people listening. So, 'cause I remember I asked this question before. So let's define, from the point of view of a consultant psychiatrist, let's define mental health.
Okay. Yeah, so you'd hear there's a lot of talk about mental health at this moment in time.
Yeah.
That is not my business. Unfortunately, I wish it was, but unfortunately it's not. I'm in the line of mental illness. I treat mental illness. Unfortunately, as psychiatrists, as mental health professionals, we're firefighters. By the time somebody has reached me, they're on fire. Yeah. When I say they're on fire, there's accumulation of things that have occurred, traumas, adversities that led to this person becoming mentally unwell. And when I say mentally unwell, there are loads of different diagnoses I could throw in your direction, from psychotic illnesses like schizophrenia, bipolar, schizoaffective disorder, to more common mental disorders or illnesses such as anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, emotionally unstable personality. You know, there are all of these different things. But by the time these people get to me, I'm in a position where I take their symptoms, I take their signs, I work out a formulation, and I'm able to diagnose. Now, not everybody in our society has mental illness, but we all have mental health.
Okay.
And mental health is almost like physical health. Yeah. In the sense that you are an individual who goes to the gym, for example, in a pre-lockdown kind of world. You might go to the gym to better your physical health. But we can all better our mental health. You know, at the end of the day, people, they do yoga, they listen to music, they connect with friends. These are all ways of you bettering your mental health. So that's the difference between mental health. You could call it mental well-being if you wanted to. Think about your mental well-being and mental illness.
Okay.
Yeah? And my hat goes off to, there's a lot of good people out there, like people who work as personal trainers. We're in the same line of business. What you're doing is you are addressing the issue further down the stream, basically.
Yeah.
I'm at the point where we've got floods, where we've got, or maybe, we've got floods, where everything is crashed out of control. Yeah. And you are addressing the problem at source. I feel like one of the biggest problems in psychiatry, I don't want to be a firefighter, to be honest with you. I wish that more money could be invested into sorting out societal problems, to the point that hopefully one day I get put out of a job and I'll just find something else to do. But I feel like what needs to happen is more preventative work. Prevention is always better than cure at the end of the day.
Oh, man. I hear that.
It's always better than cure. So we need to invest more in the things that cause people to go from good mental health, or from having just, mental health, into mental illness. Okay. And I can't stress enough, it all comes down to our experiences, And we in psychiatry, we recognize that certain experiences that you have before the age of 18 can lead you down a trajectory of ending up seeing a psychiatrist later on in life.
Yeah. Okay.
We call them adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these could be things like neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Yeah. These could be things like having parents who are divorced or incarcerated parents. Then we also talk about the toxic trio as well, where you're raised in a household where you have a parent that had a mental illness, or both parents that have a mental illness, where parents or both parents are using illicit substances, as well as domestic violence. So see, these are some of the things that if you hear me?
I can hear you now. You cut out for about 2 seconds.
Oh, I think it's my Wi-Fi. I think it's my
Okay.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah. You said I lost you at systemic things.
Yeah, so if you have any of these things before the age of 18, when you're maturing, your mind is maturing, this could have a toll to play going forward. Subsequently, it could affect who you then become, basically. Yeah. So these are things that I feel like in our society, we need to address these things. We need to address, why is it that, in our community, that kids are not being raised in stable homes where there's an absent parent. Yeah. And I want to address one thing quite quickly, is being an absent parent does not just mean that you're physically not there.
Yeah.
Because, and I only talk from our experiences as children of West African parents, is that there are too many of us that have emotionally absent fathers. Yeah. Fathers that are physically present, but not offering you that guidance that you kind of need, like, basically. Yeah. So we need to really address these things in our society. And I know that when we unpackage it all comes down to systemic racism. Yeah. My parents, when they came over, when I was growing up, both of them, while studying at university in accountancy, they were both working 2 jobs at the same time. Yeah. Their white counterparts didn't have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And when they're doing these things, they've got less time to spend raising their children. Yeah. So there are so many small things there that we really need to, and we could spend hours talking about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Abraham Maslow, is it the hierarchy of needs?
Hierarchy of needs, yeah.
Because I think for a long time in the Black community, we've been able to like kind of hint at the problem. We've got all this stuff to talk about, even from a generational point of view. Like, our parents did so much to put us in a position that we're in now. They didn't have time either to acknowledge or to deal with any sort of mental health issues that they might have had at the time. But a lot of them dealt with some very heavy trauma coming over and being first generation in a
100%.
society that wasn't welcoming, to keep your mind, to keep your marriage, to keep your job and raise kids like they're superheroes.
Yes, yeah.
But didn't have the time or the wherewithal or the self-awareness enough to say, actually, as much as I'm focused and I'm goal-driven, am I doing this at the expense of a part of myself? It's like you're saying, so from a physical point of view, you obviously, by the time people come and see me, either as something major's happened, but quite often, there's lots of studies now that saying that the major stuff that's happening is a consequence of small organic traumas over a long period of time. So if you've had a heart attack today, that's probably as a consequence of the fact that over some time, there's been narrowing of your arteries because of smoking or diet or genetic predisposition or poorly controlled diabetes or hypertension. It's not a today thing. It's because we often look specifically at, like you say, people in your sphere, and we see somebody acting a certain way, and we don't look at actually what's been happening for the last 5 years, 10 years. What is this person carrying? What have they been dealing with? But from a physical point of view, similarly, today isn't where it started. Actually, and you got me from a prevention is better than cure. That's all it is. I'm now starting to investigate lifestyle medicine from a physical health point of view, because actually,
yes,
if
yes.
we get people to understand that, maybe medicine as we see it isn't going to be like this.
Yes,
50 years time, you know.
Yes. I mean, but yeah, everything you said, I 100% agree with. I mean, to the point that I took a break in my training. I went back to university. This is when I got my fourth and final degree in sport and exercise psychology. And there were certain modules within that I homed into that were really important that I wanted to take back to my practice. And this was kind of looking at exercise and how we use exercise, not just exercise, but physical activity, just moving, that moving is medicine, and the importance of that in not only preventing, but treating certain mental conditions, such as anxiety, such as depression, such as personality issues. This was very important for me. And it still is one of those things now that a lot of people, I think even Hippocrates would said, I think he had some quotes about medicine and the need to move, basically.
Yeah, okay.
At the end of the day, unfortunately, we're both having this conversation and we're sitting down. And this is also another thing that's killing us, this sedentary behavior. The way our worlds have adapted is that we're cheating life. Yeah, we've got lazy. We sit on our backsides for most of the day. We eat unhealthy processed food, takeaway food. We want things all quick and easy, all of convenience, and it's taking its toll on our body. So you're right. By the time someone has, say, a heart attack, for example, it's not something that just happened just like that. It's an accumulation of things that have happened over time that allowed this to be the case, basically. And I guess for some people, the for example, live to tell the tale, you can say, well, that was a warning shot. But you know what? It's not over. You need to change something.
Absolutely.
And change can sometimes be good. And that's how I look at the whole coronavirus thing. Like sometimes we need change to better ourselves, to evolve, because certain things weren't working. Certain things were not working before.
So, I mean, we're not going to delve into the specifics of the mental, because that's a massive, obviously, you've done training for X amount of years to get to your position. But like from we talked about the fact that you said about your oppressor looking like your therapist looking at your oppressor. Like, how much of an issue do you think that is? So for those of us who might come from a Africa or Caribbean background, then as a consequence of what's happened, we are in the bracket of now mental illness. And then having to interact with somebody like yourself, but then you walk in the room and it's not you they see.
Sure.
It's somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that's unfortunately going to be around for a long time, but we are moving into a better direction with it. And again, back to my own experiences. Okay, so you've asked that question from patients to me, okay? And I'm used to being a doctor. I've been a doctor for over 10 years now. So I'm used to being a doctor. I'm used to owning myself, what my identity is, recognizing that I'll probably have that kind of interaction with a patient tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I'm used to it. I want to take what you said and put it into how I view a relationship with another kind of organization, and that's the police. I have to work with the police in my day-to-day work. We have a section called a section 136 where police who, they're not mentally health trained, I should say. They can observe someone in a public place to be what they perceive to be mentally unwell. And not only that, the person has to be at risk of harming themselves or others. They can take that person, detain that person, and bring them to hospital to be assessed by a psychiatrist. And so you would have thought, okay, well, these colleagues, but I have a certain relationship with them at work. But I'm also a black man. I was a black man ever before I was a doctor. And even as a black doctor, I've had some ill confrontations with the police. Usually when I'm driving my car, and it doesn't matter what kind of car it is, if it's my first car to the car that I'm driving now, it doesn't matter. These interactions, the only thing that matters is the fact that I'm a black man, basically.
Mm.
So I've been stopped by the police because you know, they run a check on a vehicle. We're talking about, this was about 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
A Peugeot 307, not a fancy car,
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
affordable car for me back then, but not a
Yeah.
fancy car. I was on my way to literally about 5-minute drive to a friend's house. Maybe I should have walked actually. And literally they followed me for the whole duration. So from the moment I left the road where my apartment was to
Yeah.
drive to my friend's apartment, they were following me, and I could see they were following me.
Yeah.
And when they pulled me over, they was like, well, you know, we run the check and it says this car is registered to a Dr. John Iola.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so what's the problem? And so they're like, so who are you? I'm like, wow, is that why you pulled me over? I've also had times where I've left work and I've had my NHS lanyard on and my
Yeah.
NHS ID on,
Yeah.
and it's just been like a random routine check. But everyone, and again, this is in Tower Hamlets, where not everyone looks like me. You
Yeah.
know, the majority of people, like I said earlier, Bangladeshi, whites, Somalian,
Yeah.
everyone they lined up on this wall for a routine check were black.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, can you imagine?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
still with the NHS uniform on,
Yeah.
like just so blasé about the whole thing. No sorry, no nothing. This is what, mad. So I guess going back to kind of what you were saying with regards to, you know, my patients and their interaction with me. In fact, if you could just remind me, actually, I think I've kind of just
No, because
lost.
we were talking before about like your therapist looking
Okay.
like your oppressor.
Yeah. So when it comes to, so the reason why I talked about the police, they're my oppressor. They are my oppressor. At the same time, that there will be a time where I would need them to be my savior.
Yeah.
If some sort of criminal act is happening in my vicinity, I might have to phone them. You know, I might have to, and it worked. We have phoned them for support at times, and they've addressed me in a way that is so confrontational on hospital grounds. I'm thinking like, well, why did I even bother?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I think it's a big thing. And I think it's a big thing when we're talking about Black people being overrepresented in mental health institutes as patients. I practice my psychiatry, I keep it very much simple. I practice the biopsychosocial model. So for those people that don't know, whenever I see a patient with a problem, with a difficulty, with a diagnosis that I'm looking to help them work through, or I'm trying to treat, the way I always try and treat these people is, and it's a collaborative effort as well. The only exception is sometimes they don't have capacity, and sometimes I have to treat them in a way that I feel is best for them until they regain their capacity, and then we can work together going forward. But the biological. So this is medication, and as much as I'm a psychiatrist, I'm a social psychiatrist. So I only ever use medication when I feel there's 100% a need to use medication. Even when my patient is telling me, Dr. Iola, I can't sleep, I struggle to sleep, I'm first to explore sleep hygiene. Like, what is it that you are not doing, that you're not controlling, before I then give you this tablet that you may have to be on for a long period of time and maybe even get addicted to. So I know there's a time and a place, and there's certain conditions in psychiatry that need medication. And also the thing to stress with medication, again, like I said before, it's collaborative. Most of the time when I'm offering medication as a tablet, I'm not going to be at my patient's house every single night to make sure that they're going to take the medication. So they need to be invested in that treatment going forward. The next arm of treatment is psychological. So, and that's what every single human being requires. I mean, just us now reaching out, this is therapy in itself, basically.
Exactly.
And going back to our ancestors and a village raising a child, this is what our ancestors used to have, basically. There was no psychiatrist then. You know, you had wise people who, through lived experiences, were able to guide other people around them. They didn't go to medical school for that. That was just through their experience that they were qualified to be able to do that kind of work, basically. Everyone needs psychology. And then the final arm is social. It's looking at the social situation that has led to that person being sometimes isolated, sometimes stressed in their world, and kind of addressing that and problem solving with that individual, basically. So these are all the kind of things. But going back to psychology, because for me, of those three arms, that's where I'm always going to put, for me, 80, maybe that's a too high a figure, maybe 70% of what is important for someone's treatment, I feel personally, lies in psychology. Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
Uh,
you touched on something I was about to bring up, like you were saying about like the village,
yeah.
back in the day, like in the village raising a child. I think I have been like struck by the concept of, so first off, we're all cultural beings anyway, right? So we can't escape where we've come from, and a lot of where we've come from, regardless of where we are, is still in our member. It's still in our emotional memory or whatever. So if we've come from spaces where actually we can talk loud, and then we do interact with other people, or we do in a village, and then we've adopted a Western lifestyle, there's a congruence issue there.
Mm.
Actually, this is how I want to operate, but I'm only allowed to operate in this situation. It's kind of like forced code switching, which, because we're not doing it on purpose, is that a stress? And because a friend of mine is a social worker, and this issue about culture came up. So this thing about Black people are overrepresented in incarceration, overrepresented in inpatient mental health spaces. We're overrepresented in the number of Black children who were taken away from their families. But it's understanding culture. So my friend is Nigerian, and she's saying actually there's cases that she might have been involved with, and her non-Nigerian counterparts are like, nah, this is abuse, and she's saying, look, in I'm not saying it's not abuse, but from a if you would see it differently if you understood culture.
Yeah. Okay.
And even this thing about interacting with police, actually, there's evidence that shows that Black people who so it's in one of the videos I think I might have sent you. There's evidence to say that certain Black people, or they did studies on a group of white people and a certain Europeans and a certain group of Black people, and when the Caucasians were animated, they lost their ability to be rational.
Mm-hmm.
But when the Black people, these people in this study did it, they were able to be animated and rational. Mm-hmm. So from an assumption point of view, if I'm a Caucasian or a police officer, and I see somebody acting in a certain way and that person is white, it's legitimate to say this guy doesn't know doesn't know what he's doing. Therefore, let's take him out of the situation and maybe 136 and whatever. But it's not necessarily really the same assumption to make of somebody from a different culture. And often we're looking at everybody through the same window, thinking that we're all the same when we're not the same. And that's part of the reason why, because actually in our culture, we're probably louder than, because we came from places where there was lots of fields and,
Yeah, 100%. And I'm very mindful of that point because the worst part of my job is actually having to incarcerate, detain, section people that look like me. And it's not something I do lightly. It's something where when I do it, it does need to be done. Like I say, sometimes I've already given the comparison of me being a firefighter. If the man is on fire, I've got to put him out, basically. By putting him out means taking him out of that situation and putting him in a safe environment, or a safer environment than where he was coming from. And I've always said, like, we talk about madness. It's not really a word that I like to use. But when we talk about madness, I think it was R.D. Laing who said, this was a Scottish psychiatrist, I think he was Scottish. He said that insanity is a normal response to an insane world. Yeah. The world we live in is mad. It's absolute crazy. I've already told you about the adverse childhood experiences. It's mad to think that children have gone through these traumas before the age of 18. Childhood sexual abuse. How crazy is that? And then this is and the body will always keep the score. There's a book about that. I think it's by a guy called Bessel van der Kolk, who talks about traumas and how traumas, it's not just in the psyche that the body keeps the score. It tallies up all of these traumas. And we can talk about transgenerational trauma as well. And the sins of our fathers, and how that has maybe changed how our epigenetics to the
Yeah.
sense that there's something within our DNA that has allowed us to carry that loss, that
Yeah.
trauma,
Yeah.
that pain from
Yeah.
our ancestors
Yeah.
through to today.
Yeah.
It's mad, you know. It's really mad. But these are things, yeah. These are real things.
Yeah. No, because I've heard studies like um, the children of Holocaust survivors are different
Yes,
genetically, you know, and
yes.
the descendants of enslaved peoples. Again, you can see that there is genetic evidence of the trauma that they survived. Now, again, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, so I think there's a lot of information and a lot of a growing understanding of the fact that actually, obviously, slavery was a big trauma. You know, there's a lot of work in America talking about, like you say, even from a mindset point of view,
Mm-hmm.
slavery had a massive effect on the people who were enslaved and moved and put in a different environment. But
Mm-hmm.
from a psychiatry and a psychological point of view, what do you think the effect slavery had on the people who stayed? You know,
Good
could
question.
there have been an effect in terms of
It's a
like,
good question. It's a good
mm,
question. And if I'm honest with you, and again I speak from my experiences, I can only speak on stuff that I'm knowledgeable in, stuff I've read. Um, but we are not those people. We, like, you know, we are here.
mm,
Yes, I think we need to really pose that questions to, for example, psychiatrists that practices psychiatry in Ibadan or
mm,
in Lagos
yeah, yeah,
or, you know, in somewhere in Nigeria, basically,
mm,
who also has some sort of insight as to my challenges as a psychiatrist in East London, for
yeah,
example.
yeah, yeah,
But going back to your point, trauma does not only have to be witnessed.
yeah, mm,
Sorry, trauma does not only have to be experienced. You don't have to just be the victim. You
yeah,
could have observed it as well, you
yeah,
know,
exactly, yeah,
and that is traumatic in itself. And
yeah,
that, again, the body keeps the score. That
yeah,
leaves a scar. And we're
mm,
talking about loss as well, basically.
mm,
And even this year for a lot of people, it's a loss. You know, it's a loss not only with like people actually losing people who have died from coronavirus,
yeah,
but it's been a loss of our lives to an extent. Like, you know,
yeah,
this lockdown, a loss of control.
yeah,
Yeah. And I often think that, you know, we are going through the stages of grief, the
mm,
5 stages of grief, where you can think back to when this initially started, the amount of denial
yeah,
around coronavirus and
yeah,
people, the conspiracies that came up and
yeah,
stuff like that. And then lo and behold, like, you know, we were here and like we before you know it, like in March, Boris had put us into this lockdown and we're angered by it and, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
frustrated. And how can you be doing this to us? And then it wasn't just 3 weeks, it was extended, it extended, and
yeah,
we got sad, we got depressed, our emotions kind of, you know,
yeah,
and to the point that, you know, in my line of work, we felt that. It's very palpable that
mm,
people were reaching out because, you know, there was such a loss, they didn't know how to cope with this loss.
mm,
And then the bargaining kind of come along where you're kind of trying to negotiate. Oh yeah, but you know what? A vaccine's going to come along. It'll be fine by Christmas.
yeah,
And look
yeah,
at us in November. We're in our second lockdown, and you know, people are thinking, okay, they've just moved the goalposts now. Yeah, the vaccine won't be ready by Christmas, but it'll be ready like
yeah, yeah,
before Easter. And they keep on moving the goalposts. My way of looking at stuff, just accept it is what it is, basically.
mm,
And I feel like if you can get to that stage where, because that's the final stage of grief,
agree,
acceptance.
yeah.
And if you can fast forward through all of those other stages and get to the acceptance stage, you'll
Yeah.
be much better outlook going forward, basically. A
I
much
never
better.
actually thought of it like that, but it makes perfect sense now that you're saying it.
But this is it. All right, so my line of work is all about relationships. That's one of the things.
Mm,
And ultimately, I see an individual um, who has had a breakdown of relationship, but ultimately the most important relationship that matters is the relationship with themselves.
mm,
And hence why I'm in the business where, you know, I am trying to prevent, for some people, prevent them from taking their lives. Yeah.
mm,
And to be in that position, you have lost love with yourself. You
so,
know, you've lost that relationship with yourself. So
mm,
that's part of my job is thinking about, and you know, no medication whatsoever is
mm,
going to allow my patients to kind of fix that relationship with themselves
mm,
or to start loving themselves and have more love and receive love from other people. No medication can do that.
mm,
Psychology can, but medication can't.
Okay.
And then the other part of my work that I find myself battling with on a regular basis, and I think it's just slipped my mind.
Yeah.
Identity is another thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, my sister, actually, she's got a Netflix. Well, I want to say show. She produced a short film. I think it was at the end of last year. That's just been released on Netflix about 2 weeks ago. 15-minute film. It's
Okay.
called The Lapo Is Fine, and it's basically about a young girl
Okay.
who battles with her relationship with herself, and tries to hold her identity. She holds her identity in her name, her Nigerian given name, as well as her hair, her afro,
Yeah.
in a white world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are things that are very important. But coming back to what I was saying, so yeah, relationship and how identity features into relationship. The other
Yeah.
thing I remembered as well, loss. That's how I got into this conversation as well.
Yeah.
Whenever I see a patient, it's because they've had a loss. And this is what we're dealing with coronavirus. We're dealing with so many losses right now. So
Yeah.
it makes sense to kind of use that model about the 5 stages of grief, because
Yeah.
grief is a loss,
It really
and
does.
how that factors into all the things that we're seeing today, basically.
Yeah. So I suppose I have two questions. I know you have to. I know you have to go. My two
Yeah,
questions.
there's no rush, no rush at all.
Yeah. Thank you. So, question number one is, regardless of like your opinion on, the validity of the lockdown in terms of like schools are open but everything else is closed, and is this for the economy and all that, regardless of the validity of it, what do you think the consequence of the lockdown is on the population?
Wow, that's a big question, man. That's a big question.
Yeah. From a psychological point of view.
It all comes down to mindset, Ayo.
Mm.
Yeah. Like I said, I always try and see the world from my perspective first before I try and see it through other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
Now, I'm in a position where I've come from poverty and I'm no longer in that position right now, basically. So I can see things from different angles. I
Yeah.
can see how this thing is going to affect people worse than myself.
Mm.
But ultimately, it all depends on your mindset.
Yeah.
It really depends on your mindset, what you're going to get out of this coronavirus, what you're going to get out of this pandemic, basically.
Yeah.
It all comes down to mindset. Because the way I see it is like, and I guess what you're asking with this question, I don't know if it's loaded, but it feels like you might be asking me, are we anticipating that I'm going to see more patients under my care in the future because people have not dealt with this lockdown well, emotionally and physically? Yeah.
No, come on,
It could be. I mean, the way I see it is that even when someone develops a mental illness that I can treat with medicine, with psychology, with looking at social aspects and stuff, one thing I always know is that I am doing my patients a disservice and I'm not being true to who I am as a doctor if I'm not having other conversations with them.
Yeah.
Conversations about lifestyle, yeah? I'm talking about, and these are things, unfortunately, that Manchester Medical School and many medical schools across the country back then, possibly still now, are failing to teach on the curriculum about the importance of sleep, the importance of healthy eating, nutrition, the importance of exercise and physical activity, the importance of connections, being connected, staying connected. And don't get it twisted about, okay, we're in a lockdown. We have the opportunity to be more socially connected than ever before. The technology allows for it, yeah? There are people that I've spoken to this year that I haven't spoken, like yourself, I haven't spoken to you in years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah?
I feel like every time something comes up, we make an excuse. But this is actually better. Yeah. And there'll be certain things that we'll take from this pandemic that we will carry forward, yeah? There's no need for me to travel to the other side of the country or to a different country for a conference anymore. I can do the conference from the pleasure of my own home. Absolutely. So there's that. There's the fact that we're not taught how to breathe properly. And I do this with many of my patients in an anxious, panic state, teaching them how to breathe and how that can just changing their physiology can then change their psyche.
Absolutely.
It's very important, like, you know, the science behind gaseous exchange, you know, to feed your cells oxygen is needed. And then another thing that, you know, I think keeps me looking young is laughter and being optimistic and happy. You know, these are the foundations.
Yeah.
Despite, no matter if I give my patient the best medicine, the best antidepressant or the best antipsychotic to get them through that crisis and treat what they're in, these are the things that, you know, this is the prevention. Yeah. These are the foundations. And there's no point me doing a loft conversion and fixing somebody's house and curing them of their psychotic episode if their foundations are built on sand. So going back to your question, like, it all depends on what every individual wants to take out of this lockdown. And what mindset they're in.
To be honest with you, that your answer even encompassed my next question. My next question was going to be, so like, for somebody who is not as knowledgeable as you from a psychological point of view, what simple things can the layperson do as a maintenance thing? So you've talked about sleeping, healthy diet, exercise, conversation, social interactions, and mindset. And I think the thing I've learned in this space is that, like, sometimes, especially when you're thinking about goals and all that kind of stuff, it can be overwhelming. But the reality is that you can start anywhere. Doing something is better than doing nothing. you know what I mean? So fine. And you don't even necessarily have to address all of these things at one time. So fine, you're not sleeping right now. Let's address sleeping.
Let's address it, exactly.
Deal with sleeping, and however long it takes you, just be intentional about the fact that actually, in the next month, I'm going to do what is within my control so I can sleep better. So I'm going to, you know, there's apps on your phone you can get from a filter point of view that make it easier to sleep. You know, I'm not going to take my phone to my bedside so I'm not tempted, you know. There's even the kind of alarms you can get, you know, so you're not startled when you wake up in the morning, all this kinds of stuff. And I'm going to go to sleep at the same time every day and wake up at the same time.
100%, yeah, 100%.
You know?
Yeah. And I think with what you're saying there, that is so true. It's about, during this lockdown, getting yourself into routine. Doing stuff on a routine basis, and being strict about it as well. For me, exercise has been a big thing. I've already gone for a run this morning. I went for a cycle later on in the day. Having these routines in your life is going to be important post lockdown anyway. The importance of healthy eating, I can't stress it enough. You know, at the end of the day, like, you know, they don't teach us nutrition at medical school, but
even though everyone thinks that we should. You're a doctor, you don't even. It's not.
Listen. This is my issue. This is my problem with Western medicine. Food is the first medicine.
Absolutely.
Eating the right food can prevent against all of those things that I mentioned earlier that are killing our community more than the rest of society. You know, we need to think about what we're eating. And one thing I would like people to do during this whole lockdown is reflect on what they were doing before and ask yourself the question, why? Why? Just because someone says something, don't take it as gospel. You know, go back to the stage where you were a child and you questioned everything in your life. You know, the notion that, you know, you're supposed to eat 3 meals a day and that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I ain't gonna lie, I take some issue with it on the basis that I'm an intermittent faster. So my first meal of the day is around 12 o'clock. So I eat within an 8-hour window. I'm not saying that everyone should do that. I'm saying that if you're going to say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, well, let's break down what people eat for breakfast. And tell me what is healthy about it. We're talking about cereals, we're talking about sugar, we're talking about pork, you know, like none of this is healthy food. Dairy as well, you know, 75% of African Americans, from a study, showed that 75% of African Americans are lactose intolerant.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay, just because it doesn't affect my body like it would do most of my community, do I still need to drink cow's milk? I need to ask myself the question, what other mammal drinks another mammal's milk? Come on, man. So for that reason, like I've made an active switch to alternative milks, basically. So I think we need to really think about our diets. We need to think about, who are we really cheating in life if we're eating processed food? You know, it hurt me to see that as soon as the first lockdown was over, the queues for McDonald's, we're talking about what, 5 miles of queues? To the point that even there was this, I know it's a bit of a joke, but a man made a car. It sounds like he didn't own a car, but he made a car out of a cardboard box so that he could go through the drive-through and get his McDonald's. and is that even food? You know, there are memes that show that this stuff does not decompose after decades. And this is the stuff we're all running back to. Listen, food is medicine. Eat the right food, and you won't get cardiovascular problems. You won't get diabetes. You reduce the chance of you getting certain cancers. And your mental health as well. Like, what hurts me in my job, as well as sectioning people, is the fact that when I have to commit a patient on, I want to say a short-term basis of using an antipsychotic medication, but you know, for some patients, when I say short-term, as minimum as a year. For some people, that's a long time. But knowing the fact that some of these medications I prescribe my patients stimulate appetite, craving for sugar, lead to metabolic syndrome. So all of these things are already killing my community. I've just made the chance of them getting it even more so by giving them this medication that can cause metabolic syndrome. So, you know, we have to be mindful about what we're eating. And we need to ask ourselves the question, why? Coronavirus, the pandemic, has been sensible in the sense that it's allowed me definitely to realize it's not about living life in the fast lane. We know about what happens to people that live life in the fast lane. They crash. They crash. They don't finish their journey at the stage where they should finish their journey. So Corona has slowed us all down, man. And this is what I'm saying. Now is the perfect time. Be at peace with your relationship with yourself. Listen to yourself. Check what your desires are, your goals are, your dreams. Have you been achieving that? Have you gone off track? How do you get back on track? Ask yourself about the things that you're consuming. Is that going to allow you to get to the end of your journey? Because these are the things that you really need to, you know, to keep you healthy, to keep you disease free. And when it comes to mental health, you know, certain things are against us. The migration effect, you know, systemic racism, you know, we have been oppressed by this system. This system has not got any answers for us. It's not going to try and change itself anytime soon. I don't think it's our responsibility either to come up with the answers for that. But knowing that, yes, with all of our traumas and our adversities, that we can also develop resilience. How we develop our resilience is like what we did when we were back at university, is finding those connections, safety in numbers, realizing these are the people that are going to support you through what will be a difficult time. I never had that at sixth form. There was no one who looked like me in my year group that could support me, hence why it was a challenging time. But just utilizing the resources that are around you, making sure that you're really tapping into that. Definitely, 100%.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that the pandemic is helping me think about is being intentional. Because I think a lot of the consequences in life, we're just coasting towards. So, you know, are we thinking about the fact that in 10 years, you know, if I continue to do this, there might be a wall, you know? And just like, I hear what you're saying about like question everything. This meal I'm eating right now, you know, this program I'm watching out now, you know, this going for a run or not going for a run I'm doing right now, everything I'm doing, is it, because I think it's a hard truth, but it's not a zero-sum game. Every interaction is either moving you forward or it's moving you backwards. And I think because of the fact that before Corona, life was so busy, we never had to contend with these truths. But now with Corona, like you say, the brakes have been put on. Actually, it's a perfect time to reassess everything. So this relationship I'm in, you know that kind of those people you're like, oh, I don't like the person I become when I'm around that person, is now the time to be like, let's find let's find different friends, better friends. Let's address it.
Yeah. 100%. Like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm of the opinion that you don't lose anything, or sorry, you only lose if you don't learn. And there's so much learning we can take from just this period. This period is allowing us to reflect, and it's allowing us to learn. And for that, you don't lose anything. Nothing is lost. You're gaining by just having this pause on your life. I think it's very important that people come at peace with that, because at the end of the day, the consistent thing in your life going forward is you. And I've set myself the challenge, and I would encourage all of you listening today to set yourself the same challenge, is to die of old age. Back in the day, that used to be signed up, featured on death certificates.
Grand old days.
Now we have to have a reason that somebody has passed away. Let's change that. Let's get to a stage where you can live a long life, because, you know, some people listening right now, they may be religious, they may be thinking that there is something on the other side. I'm very much a spiritual person. You know, the way I see my creator is not as one individual. I take the fact that there are so many things that have led to me being here today, basically. And I don't know what's on the other side, if there is another side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to enjoy every moment I've got here today. Or not just today, this time, basically. And who sets how long I'm here? I do. Very simple. I do it by, look, my body, it's like we were talking about cars, and, you know, we can look at our bodies as factories at the end of the day. If we want this factory to keep on moving, we've got to realize that at the end of the day, we've got to be putting in the right ingredients into this factory. You know? We've got to resource this factory well. You know, we've got to energize this factory well. So these are the things, when I talk about those foundations that I feel all of my patients, my friends, I need, this is it. These are all the things that help this factory keep on moving.
I mean, and so for those of you who are religious, you need to hear it. You know, the Bible says that your body is a temple. Now, we're used to hearing the temple of the Holy Ghost. So you're used to hearing that in the context of sexual sin, you know, as a consequence of your body being the temple of the Holy Ghost, and then behave correctly. But just like John is saying, for a building to continue to be viable, it needs maintenance. And so as a responsible tenant, because we're actually only renting this body.
I agree. The spiritual side of me definitely agrees with that.
From a perspective point of view, I'm not a physical person having a spiritual experience. I'm a spiritual person having a physical experience. There's going to be a before and after. So what am I doing to make sure that the body that I've been given is in tip-top shape, in the same way that you take your car for a service to keep it young? Not taking for your car of a service will not make it spontaneously combust, but it will make it last less long than it could have.
Putting the wrong fuel into your car, putting petrol into a diesel car is not going to help your car move, is it? You know, so that's what I'm saying. Food is the first medicine. And I'm of the opinion that everything that we require to treat any ailment exists in nature first and foremost.
I believe that.
Maybe we found it, maybe we haven't found it, but it definitely exists in nature. Because I truly believe that, because I believe we were created perfectly. I think like our design was perfect. I feel what's happened as a race, as a human race, is that we thought we'd take shortcuts, is that we thought we would be lazy and we'd cheat. And ultimately we started doing stuff that is shortening our own lives. Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's interesting because we were talking about like the village situation. Like, I'm of the opinion that, like, so again, for me, from a faith-based point of view, that when God created our communities, the original communities, just like there was an elder who could come and talk to you about their experience and stuff, there was probably a guy who could say, oh, you've got a pain in your foot. Okay, that plant over there, that'll take care of pain in your foot, you know. And there was, just like you were saying, I believe that God put everything, flora and fauna out there, and it's got the properties to heal. Because actually the pharmaceutical companies actually know about this as well, because a lot of the stuff that the medicines that we're dealing with today are extracts, you know, belladonna and atropine and that kind of stuff. We have made it something it's not, but actually, even the Bible says that the plants were for healing specifically, not just for sustenance, you know. So I really do think that it's important that we, I mean, I think, like you say, it's a perfect time to start. If you've never taken the time to ask yourself any questions, we've just been coasting. Now's a great time. That was a great time.
Now is definitely the time, and you know, it's a nice place that we're almost ending on, about just thinking about, you know, those kind of things that really keep this engine going. And another thing for me, as much as food for me is an important medicine, as well as all the other things that I mentioned as well, but one thing that it definitely gets overlooked, particularly in my line of work, is as a psychiatrist, I might prescribe some, but I mean, I can't prescribe placebo. It's unethical, you know. But sometimes there's medication that I throw in a patient's direction that I'm giving them at such a low dose, I know it's not going to have an effect. But the way I package it and the way I deliver it to them, and the way they have faith in it, it does help change the way they think about their situation. But I think the most important thing, the most important treatment that us as psychiatrists have, or people working in mental health have, and things that I try and get them to tap into, is human connection. Because at the end of the day, when I'm meeting these people, they're lost. They're lost from a community. And it's my duty to get them back involved in their community. And just by having a conversation allows that to happen. Just by reminding them to connect with family and friends, you know, that is better than any. And that's the social arm that I kind of touched upon, but didn't go into much detail. That social arm, a village, it takes a village to raise a child. That is medicine. Community is medicine. Communities are there to take, and you see it in other kind of species within the animal kingdom, where you see a community look out for its young and each other. And that is powerful stuff. Community is medicine. Yeah,
man. Well, I think, like you say, that's a great place to round up. So, Dr. Yola, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. It's been a good chat. There's been so many things that you've made me really, really think, or you've articulated in a way I'm like, that's perfect. It's perfect. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. And keep on doing this good work. I mean, we do know it's difficult times, and credit to yourself with what you've gone through, what your family are going through, that you're still finding the time to do something important, basically. And really, you really have, you know, taken on board what it is to be a doctor. It's not, you know, just about those times when you're on call and when you are on rota doing a shift. Like for me, being a doctor is, you're always a doctor first and foremost. And I want to be less of a firefighter. I want to be less of treating people on a one-to-one basis, because you know what, we're not getting any younger. It's tiresome. It's tiresome treating one individual, trying to save one individual one at a time. And I think this conversation and reaching out to the masses is the prevention that we were talking about. Basically this prevention.
So for those of you who are listening, please like and subscribe. This is a video with so much fire. Please share with your friends. Please let us know what you think. Let us know which one of the concepts that, you know, we talked about was the most interesting to you. You know, the village, prevention being greater than cure, your savior looking like your oppressor. There's so much stuff. Please, 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 please share it. And we'll see you on the next video.
Take care. Bye-bye.